Creating effective layouts is a core web design skill, but where do you begin? Even if you're a complete beginner to web design, I'm going to help you understand where to start. My name is Matt, I'm a designer with 20 years professional experience, and in this video we're going to address the fundamentals so that you can leave with a clearer view of the layout process in web design. We'll move through 5 chapters, firstly considering the type of website, the goal, organizing information, the guidelines that make layouts so much easier, and finally giving you some free resources and next steps so that you can progress in your design journey. Along the way I'll be sharing examples to see if you can spot what's wrong with some less successful designs and also demonstrate what best practice looks like. So what type of website are you considering? Is it a shop, an e-commerce website? Is it a media website? That could be a blog, it could be a news site, it could be any sort of content site like that for sports or about a certain topic, a magazine, sort of content that changes and is populated regularly. Well, could it be a marketing website? This is any sort of website that's more based on information and it's trying to persuade the user, give them a better feeling about a company or an organization. Or is it an app? So it's actually not a website, but some sort of application by where the user inputs information and that changes the nature of what they're doing, something like social media or a search engine or some kind of form or an AI chatbot. All those kind of things are apps that live on websites. So these are different types of websites. Then we want to think about the goal of the website, because designing one of these sites will be very different. A one page, like a landing page for a marketing website, is very different to something like the interface for an app, which is also different to something like a shop or a media website, where actually the content is always changing. It's actually populated by the assets, so like whatever products are selling on the shop or whatever news articles are coming to the top of the website. So for a shop, the obvious goal is that people want to buy, and for a media website, there's again an alignment in goal. Both the viewer and the creator of the website want people to read. The viewer is there to get the information, but for the media website, they want people on the site as long as possible. That helps them serve more advertising. For a marketing website, the goals can vary a little bit, and this is where you work with your client or your boss, your team, to ascertain this. But it might be to raise an inquiry. Let's say it's a website for a local electrician. They want people to get in contact, get a quote for a job, or it could be for something much bigger like a new car that's being released. But again, some sort of inquiry, some sort of data capture or moving people towards doing something would be the goal there. Then with an app, they want to accomplish a task. If you go to a search engine, you want to find something. You go to an AI chatbot, you're trying to write something or you're trying to research something. So they want to accomplish a task or a goal. And so having this in mind is really important before we jump into any layouts. I was trying to complete this course recently, and this is the dashboard I was faced with when I went into the first module. And it took me those few seconds, which was enough for me to know this isn't intuitive, this isn't easy enough to use, to know where I was supposed to go. I had to go through a few screens to begin with to get here, which is a fail for the user experience. Then I've got like the title 3 times of e-learning module, 3 times, twice almost the same size. And then what I was actually looking for when I was originally drawn to the center of this screen, and I have this sort of jump to that gets my attention, but it's actually this enter button here. And I had to just go through this screen and click enter just to get to the content I thought I'd navigated to in the first place. And I wasn't really sure if I was supposed to use this drop down menu or this link or where I was supposed to go. So obviously this is on a super wide browser, and if we were to make that window narrower, that would make it easier and pull it together. But this should have been designed to account for that, and this is a failure of a layout really when it comes to an app design. This is a success. In fact, Google, one of the reasons they won and became the predominant search engine was not just because they had a great algorithm, but it was actually because their user interface was so clean and so direct that we have our eye drawn towards the center. Yes, I can go into my Google Apps in the top right and Google put their own links in the other corners for things they want to share and that people need to navigate to regularly. But the majority of people are coming here to search. So that's what's front and center. It's in the center of the frame and it's our eye is drawn towards it, and it makes it really, really simple to use. So the next thing we want to do is organize the information, and these are really important prior stages when it comes to websites, right? Before we dive into like choosing colors and finding photos and all that kind of thing. So take a look at this website here. This is for a museum in the United States that I came across, and the organization of information here has not really been done. The difficult decisions haven't been made. I go to this homepage and I'm not sure where to look. There isn't a clear focal point. There isn't a place that's drawing my eye and leading me into the layout. I'm just kind of like confused, like what is important? Everything's fighting for my attention. There's not any clear contrast. And if you look really with these annotations, we've got 8 different kind of rectangular blocks here that are all a similar size, and they're all fighting for our attention. And we need some sort of scale hierarchy. So there's something that is bigger, something that is more dominant, something that we are drawn to. To organize this information, first of all, we would want to do a sitemap. So this would be a case of taking the information, perhaps it's an existing website that you're redesigning, perhaps you've just been sent a Word document, a Google Doc that's just full of the text, or a few emails exchanged, or a conversation with the client or boss about the pages that might be on the website. Well, we want to arrange all those into a logical order by categorizing them and thinking how a user might navigate through the pages. So in this instance, I've created 4 different sections that are more applicable for museums' websites. So visit, what's on, learn, support, and then the other pages can fall into those different categories, and that will simplify the choices first of all, to improve our navigation. Then we want to think about the hierarchy, which means order of importance. Now, when it comes to being a designer, we're solving problems, designing towards the goal, and then secondly, we're organizing information and making decisions about hierarchy. And there really are some of our main tasks as a designer. And here I've just quickly sketched out the hierarchy in the hero section. And that means when you first go to a website, what you first see, what is in that top frame, we call it above the fold, like at the top part of a magazine. And it's what you would see there before you start scrolling. That's the hero section. So I would think that we will need a logo in a logical position, like along the top, probably at the top left or top center, as is a convention. And then the value proposition wants to be the biggest thing. That's the offer. And their value proposition might just be, we are a really fun museum where you can learn and have a great day out. Now, you want to put that in a more engaging way than that, but a simple thing that tells you where you are, what this is about, why is it valuable, and then the description can sort of go into that in a little bit more detail, in more than the few words of the value proposition, to maybe explain where the location is, or 2 or 3 key points. We're here to educate the community and also provide a record of our history, things like that, a little bit more of a description. And then a CTA, which stands for call to action. So that means you're wanting people to do something. So that might be as simple as a primary button that you want people to click on, like plan your visit, one of your most popular pages, or the thing you're pushing people towards, or encouraging them towards. And then maybe there might be a secondary button as well, of something that is recessed and kind of a secondary option for people. And then I'm suggesting that because they had all these what's on, but there seem to be like some different events and things and exhibitions going on, and that's always changing at a museum. So I would suggest that perhaps there's a peek into the fact that there's a what's on section underneath, and then as we move from the top to the bottom, we then see that that's there. That's something that changes more often and can lead people to click or to scroll to see that section. The hierarchy is one of these principles of layout, and I've been starting to mention some others. Now, these 9: focal point, hierarchy, white space, grouping, scale, sequence, alignment, balance, and grids are 9 terms that I've been using a lot in my teaching, and you can actually find them in this video series, which Over 500,000 people have seen part 1, which is pretty mind-blowing. And it's a 3-part series. Each part covers 3 of these principles. And I really explain these so that by the end of these videos, you'll be able to articulate what these things are. And if you're not at a point yet where you're able to say what sequence is, what white space is, how to achieve balance, then I really recommend you check these out. We also have an accompanying ebook, which is also free, that you can download via these videos, and become familiar with these principles because they're going to inform all the layouts that you do. Guidelines. That's the next thing we need to do. We've got these principles in mind. We've started to organize the information and set up some sort of hierarchy within our layout. You want to set up some simple guidelines to help you achieve these things. When we look again at this example website, I've drawn these vertical guidelines, and you can see that it's kind of all over the place. Like if we go from left to right, we have this left margin, but then if we look at the right margin after the phone number, appears to be a different width. And then we have a line that comes on the left of that body copy, the text on the blue background. But then the next line is where we've got the graphic. And even with the body copy, just going back to that, sorry, the buttons don't even align to the left of that underneath. There's another margin there. And then the graphics in the center, horizontally, are not centrally aligned. We can see that center line there that goes through the middle of the logo and the middle of the 2 columns on the blue field below. But the graphics above are not aligned to that, and then it carries on kind of over to the right. And we even see with the right exhibitions and at the top that those graphics have captions that actually spill out over the right of them. And then if you look at how each of these captions, where it says like Turtle Soup is back, Winter Hours, Steam Adventures Connections, Black Hills, where do they align to? They don't align to the center of each graphic. They don't have a certain width from the left or the right. So it all seems very random, and that's what contributes to this overall kind of very, very messy effect. So what you want to do is set up a column grid that allows you to achieve that. Now, as a beginner, I recommend that you start with the 12 column grid, because this will give you a lot of control but also a lot of flexibility. And the reason why a lot of designers recommend working with the 12 column grid is because it's divisible by a lot of factors. So a 12 column grid can be split up into 12 columns, 6, 4, 3, 2, or 1 column. And you can have variations and combinations of that. So for example, on the left, a column that spans half the width, and then on the right, 3 columns. So we're here in Figma. All you need to do is press F to create a frame, and you get these options on the right. So if we just click on one of these, like MacBook Pro 16, and then we've now created a frame, and you could think of this like your hero section. That's what somebody might see, this sort of size frame at the top of your website. So then on the right, we have this option in the design menu of layout grid. So if you click on the plus, a grid is then added, and you can see this is a 10 pixel grid. So each of these squares here, the cells of the grid, are 10 by 10. If you click on layout grid settings, the icon on the left, then on grid, click on the drop down menu and change that to columns. And now we can create a column grid like the ones I demonstrated. So the count, we're going to change that to 12. Press tab. You can change the color here of your grid to whatever color you like. You can change the opacity here. So if we type in something like 30, that becomes more visible. And then the type of grid. So if we center it, it's going to be based on the width. So if we maybe have 100 pixel wide, each of these columns is 100 pixels. But I'm going to change this back to stretch and let it do it automatically. I can set a margin, which again I'll just type in on either side, on the left and right. And you can change the gutter, which is the space in between rows or columns in a grid. So just by doing that, we have a grid. And then if we were to draw a shape on this canvas, like this rectangle, and let's just give this a darker color so we can see it. If we were to drag this around, you can see that it wants to snap over to our grid. And again, if we stretch it so it fills the 3 columns, it'll snap there. So then this allows you to align, I should say, things to the column grid as you go. So from this, we might create something like a wireframe, and now we have somewhere to put things because our columns kind of suggest that. So we might have this big hero section at the top, below the navigation, in that spans across all the columns, and then below that for the what's on section, create a 3-column grid, and each one of those could be space for an image and some information about the event. And now everything is aligned both horizontally and vertically, and it kind of looks like, you know, it's purposeful, it's intentional, and it guides the viewer through the layout much more clearly. We can see this demonstrated on professional websites like this e-commerce website for Mammoth, and you see at the top row is a 4-column grid of products, but then at the bottom they have a 3-column grid, but these both work together. So this is probably based, you know, on a 12-column grid because we've got a 3 and a 4 there, and it really helps make sense of the information. Similarly, on this website for the V&A Museum in London, they have a 3-column grid followed by 1 column followed by 4 columns. So all these things work together, and we see a nice sequence there of the layout, and it helps organize the information by grouping things together and make it much easier for the viewer to work around the site, as well as making it seem much more professional because everything seems deliberate. So let's have a look at some more best practice examples and see how all these sort of elements come together in layouts, because the more knowledge you have, the more you start to see these things happen. This is Mammoth's actually about page. We just had one of their product pages, and you can see this top section here of the about page again has a really good hierarchy. The logo is where we expect it to be at the top center. Then we have the largest item other than the photograph, which fills the whole full bleed background. So that lets us know what we're talking about. We're talking about mountaineering and climbing. So we've got lots of information in the photograph, but we have here a big headline, and that is the largest element, and that's like our value proposition. You can see what they're about, and then we have this description, which is a little bit smaller, just like the sketch we do. And as we scroll, we actually get improved contrast here when this blue filter, kind of like an opaque blue color, goes over the photograph to make this text more legible, easier to read. And as we scroll through, we've got nice white space around things, and then again we've got 3 columns here with a clear headline, and then it gives us 3 options to look through, and then we've got a 4-column grid for the footer at the bottom. Similarly, on the mobile site, the information is well arranged with the logo and the icons along the top for a navigation area, and then we have the headline again, and as you scroll, that blue overlay comes in to make the type more legible. And we have more of a 1-column layout here, but there's still those little details and the little finesse, like the spaces around the gutter around each section, so we move through the site that way. Over on BBC Bitesize, which are educational resources for children in the United Kingdom, we can see here again there's a good organization of information. We've got the navigation items grouped together in sections for this huge media website, and then we're color coded from Bitesize is in purple, and once we're in this section we again have a clear value proposition. It's just learn and revise, and then we have the longer description to explain exactly what it is, and then clear options that work well together, how these books are centered within this box, and the text is centered below it, so the alignment looks very deliberate. And we have a 4-column here followed by a 5-column grid, so it's more of an alternating between these different grids rather than spanning across one. You see at times they want to span across all the columns horizontally, but it's just a simple way to organize the information. On the mobile version of this site, we have 2 columns instead of 4 at the top, but a very similar hierarchy is still established as we read from the top to the bottom, and it's clear where we can go. And then we move into these cards that span across the whole horizontal width so we can move through like a list as we navigate the site. And this is just an important thing to bear in mind, that mobile layouts must be considered now, and they are just as important, if not more so, on a lot of websites as their desktop counterparts. So when we design, we have both these things in mind. And then finally, of these examples on this about page for Zumtobel, who are a lighting designer, and again, this is very beautifully done because the grid just really makes sense of the information. And although we've just got a company building and some very, simple facts, it makes the thing much more graphical. And like on the Mammoth site here, every frame in our layout, we want it to almost feel like a poster, to have that value in the composition where there's something really graphical, and there's always each composition works, on its own. And we have that here with 4 columns, and then as we scroll through, it goes across the 1 column and then 2 columns, and we've got this blurry background to help the legibility again. Then we've got 2 columns, and then there's kind of like a multi-column thing. It sort of starts like 3 on this carousel offset. You can scroll through. Then we've got more columns here. Then we go to a centered thing. So there's a little bit of sequencing as we move through, but they've just made sure to maintain hierarchy each time, because if all this information was all thrown together on one screen, it'd be difficult for us to take it in. So they've just given it space, and then we've got a great hierarchy of a big contrast between headlines and body copy. So just by establishing, hierarchy and have things align in a very deliberate way, you can see here again how the column structure has been introduced again when we get into the footer. Just really helps make sense of the information, and it makes, everything look very, very stylish. Again, although the hero section maybe doesn't have quite the same impact as that big wide image, we still can achieve a similar feel. And again, they've used the technique of making the type a little bit more legible as you scroll, in this case by blurring the background. And we have a nice line length on this body copy. It might be a bit short on those big all caps headlines, but it still works well and achieves that similar level of style even on mobile. So what about if you're looking for some more ideas and examples? How do we break out of the box a little bit? What are some common and different layout techniques that we can use? I recommend checking out this video where I share 10 web design layout ideas. So there's 10 ideas and multiple examples within that video, and we'll link to all these resources within the description. So in summary, and then I want to share some next steps with you at the end. What we've talked about, when you begin any website layout, you want to ask, what type of website is it? Then secondly, what is the goal of the website? And design towards that. Then we want to organize the information, make sense of it. That's our job as designers, and that's how we serve our users. Then we want to set up some guidelines, so we have a place to align things to, and that's really going to help us organize the information within a canvas. And then we want to take some next steps to be better. Those things alone aren't enough. You're probably feeling to really be a great web layout designer. So what we want to do is get those principles of layout under our belt, be able to talk about and notice those 9 principles, because this will really help you learn. Because as you look at more and more sites, because you've got that language, you'll be able to identify what they're doing well or perhaps what they're doing poorly, and you will develop the art of seeing, and you'll be able to see better, and you'll bring that into your own design. So review quality examples with your increased knowledge now, and see what they're doing, and let that inform your work, and let it be a standard that you aspire to. And then next, you'll want to practice. You'll want to do lots of layouts. So think about this for a task. Take an existing site, maybe it's a site you love, maybe it's a site you think could be improved a lot, and do 3 different layouts. Don't just do the first one that comes to mind. Do 3 different layouts for maybe a hero section or the first couple of sections on that site, and think, what are all the different ways I could do it, the way I could align things, the way I could split it up, which position images should be and how large they should be, and just begin to play around with it and do lots of layouts. And don't worry too much about like fonts and colors and things like that. Stick in black and white and make sure the layouts work and there's a nice balance and rhythm to them, an organization of information. And I really recommend practicing as much as you can. Get to the point where you can do 6 different layouts for a site, and start on paper with a sketch, then jump into Figma, and that will really help you progress. So there's links in the description to all the resources that I've mentioned here, the videos, the free ebooks, and if you watch all those videos, 5 including this one, start reviewing websites and do lots of practice, I guarantee over the next few months you'll see a real improvement in your ability as a website designer. Until next time, happy designing.